So Vince, you're an ecosystem scientist. Can you tell me a little bit about the kind of research that you do?
Certainly. Well, ecosystem science is all about the interaction between living and non-living things. And I'm particularly interested in biosphere-atmosphere exchange. Now, what that means is the exchange of greenhouse gases between ecosystems and the atmosphere.
Like CO2?
Exactly like CO2, like methane, like N2O. These are powerful greenhouse gases that are all implicated in climate change. And we need to understand how ecosystems interact with the atmosphere and also how human populations might affect that emission.
So that means that the changing climate can also affect the way these gases are emitted?
Well, if you look at methane, for example, the biggest source of methane are natural wetlands. And to have a natural wetland, you need rainfall. So if you have a wetter climate, you might get bigger wetlands or more wetlands, or wetlands where there previously weren't any wetlands. So you can get the conditions, the primary conditions for methane to be emitted. But like all biological systems, because it's biology that's creating that methane that's being emitted, it responds to temperature. And so if you warm the system, you crank up the whole biology of that wetland, and more methane gets emitted. So,
and we have global warming at the moment.
We have global warming. So not only is this a greenhouse gas, it's a bit of a feedback system, really. What you have is warming of the wetland from global warming that gives off more methane, and that's how it continues. So it's really important to understand not just how an ecosystem operates right now, but also how that ecosystem responds to an enforced environmental change.
Yeah. So how did you get into this particular area of research then?
Well, I did an undergraduate degree in environmental science, then went on to do a PhD with the Open University and with the Centre for Ecology and Hydrology in Scotland. And I was interested in peatlands and how they responded to sulphur pollution, and that's sulphur pollution either via industrial deposition, acid rain, or via volcanic deposition.
Right.
And we experimented in the field. We simulated acid rain in the field, essentially put fake acid rain on the peatland, and we looked at how methane responded to that, and we found actually that methane was suppressed. It actually reduced methane emissions, which is something we didn't expect. So that really sparked my interest in continuing my research in environmental sciences.
So do you go out and work in habitats all around the world then?
Well, I lead a group that works all around the world. We have projects in Scandinavia, in Panama, in the lowlands of Cambridgeshire, but also in Amazonia and in Borneo. And so we do go to a whole range of locations to really try and understand how these ecosystems are interacting with the atmosphere. And it's important to do that.
I'm actually kind of interested to know what it's like to do fieldwork in Borneo.
Well, it's hard. It's quite difficult. You have very hot conditions. It's a forested peat swamp, so you're wading through these ecosystems. There's coarse woody debris everywhere that you're tripping over. It's an assault course, essentially. And you're having to lug all your kit around as well, so it can be really challenging to work in such a place. But it's really important that we do go to these places, because otherwise, even though they're challenging, we don't understand how the system operates.
You said you're having to lug the kit around. What sort of kit are you taking, and what are you measuring with it?
Well, my team measures things like trace gases, things like methane coming from soil surfaces, but also from tree stems. And that's actually one of our major projects right now, is to understand the role of trees in emitting methane. And what you do to actually make a measurement is you have to contain a volume around the tree. So you put a chamber on the tree stem.
To capture the gas.
To capture the gas. And then you need to look at the change in concentration of that gas within the chamber. So you can do that by taking samples. What we're increasingly doing is taking a laser-based analyzer, which is actually quite heavy, into the field, and you can measure that change in concentration in real time.
So that's your research. How does that then feed into the science teaching and the science degree programme that's here at the Open University?
Well, this feeds into the Environmental Science Award at both levels 2 and 3. We work on the interaction between plants and the atmosphere at level 2. At level 3, we can look at the effects of human populations in modifying methane emissions to the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So the research that I've been doing for many years now is directly feeding into our curriculum and into our teaching, and it makes it actually feel quite current.